Okay, welcome everybody to this issue of the GEMS EMS Today Show. It's my little spin on the NBC Today Show, and I've got two friends here that I've known for quite some time, and I've got Joe Hudak, who's been a medic for 30 years and 32-year career, but two of those as an EMT, and then 30 years as a medic. So you're an old goat like I am.
I'm a dinosaur. That's right, AJ.
And then I got Randy Lees with us. And Randy, you've been on the job 9 years. You've progressed through doing supervisory work, doing paramedic work, and I for the people that are viewing, I met both of these gentlemen as part of a competition team at EMS Today, and they're great competitors. They're very knowledgeable, and I thought, geez, I'm going to call those guys and maybe get them on, because I know that it's been a pretty crazy couple of weeks for you guys, and it's a different kind of competition. It's a competition to stay alive, and so we're going to talk about some things in general. So first of all, how you guys doing?
Doing okay so far. It's been a scary ride for the past two and a half months. I've seen a lot of stuff I've never thought I'd see in my life. It actually opened up my eyes a little bit.
Well, and you have newfound fame. You know, you were in the magazine, right? You want to mention that?
People Magazine. Yeah.
People Magazine. You were the intro guy in the People Magazine. So I don't know who your PR guy is, but it wasn't me.
They were looking to get I've been to the '93 bombing for World Trade Center and the 2001, and they were trying to compare it how it matched up with this and a couple of different. And it's just a whole new ball game. This is something I've never thought I'd see in my life. This is really crazy.
Well, it's a different kind of stress. It's a different kind of danger. So talk about that. I mean, contrast it to 9/11.
You can't see the enemy. You don't know what you're walking into. Basically, you just, it's like 24 hours. You got to be on watch. It's crazy. I mean, most of the calls we come in, all right, like 93 to bombing, we knew we were getting into. You can visualize the danger. This danger is hitting from all sides. You can't see it. It's microscopic. And it's what you don't see. Like, I put in perspective, like when I go scuba diving at night, it's what you don't see. If there's a shark below you, it's bigger than you are. It's what you can't see is what scares you.
So talk about the first case or two that you began to see. What were the cases? Without any kind of HIPAA violations, what stood out to you? What was the telltale sign that you had?
Well, call volume jumped up like overnight by 1,000 and another 2,000. It was like 3,500, 4,000. It went from 5,000, 6,000, 6,500, and it's now then 7,000. We were like, what's going on? And we realized, it was like a SARS disease, respiratory, and like everyone already putting masks on, gloves, and they first telling us that it maybe in the air, maybe 6 feet. It's you got to be careful. Stay within 3 feet of the person. It's not airborne for maybe more than maybe an hour or two. Now it's the saying it can stay on the surface for a couple of days and maybe even a couple of weeks. They didn't know a lot about it, AJ. That's the problem.
And then did you roll on a couple of jobs that were elderly? What?
Well, in the beginning, we were getting a lot of elderly sick. The cardiac arrest jumped up. Maybe had 1, 2 a week. Now it's going up 2, 3 cardiac arrests, 4, 5 cardiac arrests a day. It was like, whoa. And the problem was each cardiac arrest, we're not getting anyone back. It was just we running the whole code, and everybody was dying. We're like, what's going on? And even like after we pronounced them, we're taking the tube out, you're taking all this gunk out. It's like, what's going on? I've never seen stuff like this before in my life. It's just really, it was rancid.
And then things started to change. Your medical directors very quickly clamped down on, no aerosolized medicines and things like that, right?
No CPAP,
right?
No CPAP, intubations. They were getting scared about intubations. We started to come up with even like filters for our exhaust ports and the ventilators or the BVMs.
Right.
And we were starting after 20 minutes. It's starting to call cardiac arrest, starting to call codes after 20 minutes. Call it and just walk on to the next one. It's crazy.
Yeah, there are so many.
And I'm here.
Well, Randy sees a lot more than me because he's a supervisor. So
right.
he's in the command car. And he goes from job to job. So if I see 2 or 3 a day, he'll see maybe like 5, maybe 8, 10.
Yeah.
So
There are
And
other
Randy, there have been situations, correct, where somebody will come home and find two people deceased in the home. Am I right?
Yeah, that has happened on occasion. I know I spoke with another supervisor who had that happen. He walked in on that, and it was a back and forth kind of thing where we would show up initially, and then the patient would say something along the lines of, they're pretty much okay for the most part. I don't want to go. They don't want to go to the hospital where there's so many COVID patients, and they would sign off in the RMA, and we would go back there like a week or two later, and the wake up dead thing, basically, and it was heartbreaking because we would see them and they were fine, and then they weren't,
What's been the most interesting vital sign or presentation that you've seen? Have you seen people that said they lost their taste and smell?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's almost a constant thing. Yeah, that's almost every one of them. Yeah. Them having just a low SpO2 saturation, but
they seem like they were fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
And you think the monitor's broken, your pulse oximeter is broken, it's reading like 64, and you're like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And you're like, wow, are you sure? Like, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And then there was these side symptoms that didn't really make sense. It didn't associate at all. Like they would say they have back pain, neck pain. Some of them would have the associated shortness of breath, so they thought they had meningitis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and between just these massive headaches certain people were having, the headaches were extreme for some people, and they didn't associate it with the coronavirus. All they thought was it had something to do with the respiratory thing, and they just thought they had really nasty headaches. So.
Well, there's a couple of things I've been gleaning from crews that I've been talking to, and that's that they're finding that the patients that they're going to see said, I was having trouble breathing, and for the last couple nights I had to lay on my stomach. And so that's called proning. And I think what you're going to see over the next couple of weeks is we're going to be putting patients on their stomachs again because, and we just did a great show with 4 experts on it that is cataloged on GEMS.com. And Arlington Fire talked about the fact that they'd get somebody to be in their 80s sat, and they'd put them on their side or they'd put them on their belly, and they'd come up to 92, 93. And the crew was like, this is crazy. This is like Twilight Zone, somebody that we think maybe we got a tube, and all of a sudden we roll them over, and it's because the way this gunk is in the lungs, when it's allowed to shift around, it's a lot better than when it's allowed to be dormant, if I could be very basic about it. If the person is staying flat and they're not moving around, they get in big trouble. And what crews are finding, and Arlington Fire and others have found, is that they are proning. They're doing these patients on their side as well as flat on their stomach, and then the hospital's carrying that through. And of course, some of the hospitals have beds that rotate upside down, and these are people that don't have to go on a vent. And if you're up above 60 and you don't have to go on a vent, you can probably survive this thing. If you and that's what, I don't know if you're finding it, but the hospitals are certainly finding it. If you're 70 and 80 and you go on a vent, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. That was one of those things with just like Joe said before, not using CPAP. Like we would bring these patients in on CPAP in the beginning, and you would see like this horror in hospital staff. They're like, oh my God, you put him on CPAP? We got to intubate him, get him out of here right now. And it was like this instantaneous flip-flop.
The high pressure from the person being intubated, the ventilations was actually killing the people.
Yeah.
They were killing them. So there's almost like a high altitude sickness. It was really.
Yeah, and it's against our protocol, I think, right now to put someone prone.
No, as far as I know.
Yeah, we're not really supposed to do that, but we do ask the patient now, put yourself in a position of comfort.
Right.
It was good for them. So.
Yeah, and if the patient thinks they're better on their side or laying on their side or on their arm or whatever, so be it. But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be finding that because of shows like this and other things that are getting out there, it's very hard. The information exchange is very difficult. I was on with some field training officers yesterday, and it's awful hard to get the word out to the troops because you don't have a lot of mingling, you don't have a lot of time for training. You just go, call. So some of it is anecdotally, but I know your department's pushing out changes almost every day.
Yeah.
So the curve has changed a little bit. If I listen to your governor, the call volume is less. You'll have crazy drivers back on the streets of New York pretty soon.
Oh, they're out.
We're getting the EPs out now. A lot of robberies.
A lot of
Subways.
stabbings.
The subways are going crazy.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Well, part of the problem is that the inmates were, you talk about the inmates were released from the zoo. The inmates were released, and now
100 crazy guys were open straight.
They're out, they're bumming for money, or they're robbing people. And, I hate to say that, but I mean, it's just a fact. So in amongst this whole thing now, you've got a guy who's bloody and you got a bloodborne pathogen concern, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And like the police department, they want to get involved and they don't want to get involved. I mean, they're scared too, just like everybody else. They don't want to get close to the patient. And if you have to sedate them, you have to sedate them.
Well, just imagine a wreck in the middle of the night now once the bars begin to open up, and you're not going to know whether somebody is COVID positive inside that vehicle while you're trying to extricate them. And you're going to have the fire department concerned. They're not going to be fully gowned up. They're going to say to the paramedic, you go in there and get them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's the reality of it all. And what have you found from the public? I mean, I've seen the video clips. I've seen that the public loves you. Maybe your mayor doesn't necessarily love you and I don't love him, but the reality is I think that the citizens love you, right?
Yeah, every night at 7 o'clock, they come out with pots, pans, start cheering for us. And actually, we pull out in front of with the firemen. We pull in front of the hospitals and we cheer the nurses on every night at 7 o'clock. And it's really nice. It really lifts up the spirits. It's something to see. I mean, we had guys, bagpipers come out. They're playing New York, through the loudspeaker, and it really is. It lifts the spirits of it.
Yeah, some of it's really subtle also, where you'll just be on your way to an assignment or something along those lines, and you'll have that one guy who's just walking the street, looks like he wouldn't even talk to you ever. He gives you like that little nod, and just kind of like the acknowledgement, like, cool, I know you're working, I know what you're doing, kind of thing. Some of it's very subtle, some of it's pots and pans and things.
I mean, I've always found EMS from the time I was little right until now to be the noblest profession, but now it really is. I worry about who's going to come into the profession now. Some people are not going to want to come into the profession, know that it could be that hazardous. Let me ask you another thing though. How have things changed when you get to the door to the emergency department? Has your handoff procedure changed? I know from the medical directors that you're not requiring people to sign your electronic forms or anything like that. But do you go inside the ER with the patient, or do they meet you at the Sally Port?
Well, no one goes in without a mask. No family members are allowed.
Right.
Only one person, and they go by cell phones. They go through to get checked, and you make sure you're all gowned up. It's aseptic techniques. We constantly ripping gloves off from cross contamination, and it's very precautious. We're wearing now shields now, gowns. And I mean, completely covered.
It also depends on which hospital system you're dropping the patient off to, because some of them have different protocols. So I know I've dropped off where they'll pre-screen the patient before they let them into the ER unless they're critical. And then if they are critical, there's different pathways to get into the ER. So, less contamination.
But they're not taking the patient in the driveway and having you go back in service right there. You've got to come into the hospital.
Oh, no, that actually does happen in one of the hospitals. Yeah, in one of my local.
I know.
Yeah, you can't really go. Actually, no, you do go in. I'm sorry. In the beginning, it was questionable whether or not they let you in. But yeah, they do let you in every time now. Yeah.
And plus our return times, because you're going to take at least 15, 20 minutes to totally clean out the stretcher.
You got
decon, everything else, bleach. I mean, I'm actually using the UV lights in the back of the ambulance now.
Yeah, you are.
You are?
Yeah, I made my own. So just to kill it, they had a problem like 20 years ago with corrections, and they were getting TB, and they put the UV lights in Bellevue, and they work like a charm, kills like 99.9% of the viruses. So I fixed one up every time. In the morning, goes right on.
You got a tan too, right?
Yeah, and I gotta wear sunglasses though.
I had a good friend who sent me a text the other day saying, "See, I really was ahead of my time. It was probably about 10 years ago that up in Washington State, his fire department was using UV lighting, and he did an article for GEMS, and so I'm going to try and pull that out, but." The jury's out as far as total ambulance. Are you guys running with your exhaust fans on all the time?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Filling exhaust? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's slowed down pretty much, so when we compare.
Recently, yeah. I mean, the last couple of weeks, I mean, we did have a lot of mutual aid come in. A lot of it's from outside of New York, just flying in and just jumping into the fray with us, and they're a godsend. They helped us
Thank
a lot.
God, yeah,
You know,
they
these guys really
yeah.
did help us.
And we lost a Paul Corey.
Yeah.
That's from Colorado.
Yeah, yeah, it's sin. The guy was a grandfather. He was not a young man, but dedicated, right?
Came over here to help out, and he winds up catching this and just passes away. It was horrible.
You still have a lot of ambulances from out of town in helping you?
About
So,
170.
yeah,
I think, right
some of them
now.
extended their contracts, so they're still hanging around with us. A lot of them went home already. What did they do? 45 days with us, more or less.
Wow. The second day, some people want to get out of Dodge. They said, "I'm out of here."
There's a handful
got overwhelmed.
that came and then left right away.
But where were they staying? Were there good accommodations for them?
All around the 5 boroughs, mostly the city in Queens.
Yeah, they post them up in hotels and such like that. I know they started their day in various locations around the city. Some of them posted up in like Yankee Stadium or Bronx Zoo or wherever it is, and just that's where their staging location started, and then they would get dished out from there.
Were they assigned somebody to be with them so they could find the addresses or
GPS?
GPS? Thank God for cell phones, right?
So a lot of us as supervisors, we would go out and kind of chase them down with their jobs and make sure that they were okay, especially in the beginning, because they didn't know the area and they didn't know how to get to which hospital and whatnot. So, you know.
How did they get dispatched? How did they communicate with your dispatch center?
Sign radios.
Yeah, we assigned them all radios and they're on the same
Okay.
with us. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Every morning they check out radios
Yeah.
and get GPS, and they go out for, I guess, 8-12 hours.
Yeah,
come
so
back.
we will all hear each other. So all of our regular line units would hear all the mutual aid units as well. So just in case someone got in trouble or they needed some help, we could just fly over there if we needed to.
You know, it's funny, on 9/11, I got calls from Des Moines, Iowa and other places. People have been mass casualty classes that I've done, and they said, oh, I got to go to New York. And at that point, I was saying to them, stay home. We don't know where the next plane is going to hit. I already knew what was happening in New York, and it wasn't the number of ambulances. It was finding the people that were either trapped or we couldn't get, and it was over on the Jersey Shore. But this was a lot different. People really did, you know, it tugged at their heartstrings, and they went over there. And now some of the poor nurses are going home, and they're not being covered by workman's comp, and same kind of issues that we had with 9/11.
I know a nurse down in Georgia, lives near my sister in Georgia, and she came up here for a couple of weeks. She now tested positive. She's in isolation right now.
Yeah.
A lot of professionals came and caught it, and they were taking all the procedures, the safety procedures, and they still got it. It's, like I said, you can't see this thing. It's scary.
Usually you guys are getting New York taxed.
And the beautiful New York Presbyterian ER director, I mean, she took her own life. How sad. You had a 23-year-old, right? 23-year-old EMT. What are you doing to watch your people? Because this is going to be a very difficult stress journey here.
Right. It's one of those things where we are trying to just get in touch with everybody and seeing how they are and seeing what they need. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, they come to guys like Joe, who's a senior man, has been on for forever and a day. And if Joe can go up to them and say, listen, this is a hard day, this is tough, I get it, you know, then they know they're not alone.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
The number goes up on the KGT every morning for counseling. If you need it, it's there.
Yeah.
We have talks at the station. When we check with everybody, I'm always, hey, you okay? You okay? Pull a couple guys inside, yeah, just make sure. And everybody's got to watch each other's back.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to sit around with a mask on, and, you know, it's annoying. I lived through it on 9/11. I mean, how many people just said it was so uncomfortable or sweaty or whatever. And, you know, we're coming into the summer season now where it's not going to get any better. I got crackpots that are sending me emails about, you know, air-conditioned masks and gel you can put on your face.
You're a millionaire.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to make a fortune. Yeah, it's not going to, you know, I think as the weather gets a little bit warmer, Central Park and other places are going to be you know, some hotbeds in some other places.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully outside, I mean, UV light supposedly kills this, but you just got to be careful. I looked at the Spanish epidemic 1918. They found out treating more people outside, they fared much better than people being treated inside. So hopefully this dies down and learn our lesson. I mean, is the second wave going to come? I don't want to say it is, but it's
also
a very good possibility.
But there's also a big difference between the first wave and second wave. The first wave, you have to realize, like, so many people didn't even think this was going to be anything. there wasn't enough coverage on it. No one thought that people could potentially die from this, or they kind of thought it was just going to be a bad version of the flu,
Yeah.
you know. And now if there is a second wave, people actually will know what to do. And you know, that's why you got problems in like the outside states, not in New York, who are just like, they don't see it the same way we did. They didn't have the same hits we did. So, you know, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So, you know, some of them are taking it a little more lightly than us.
Well, we certainly aren't going to have a lack of ventilators because at least the government ramped up that way. And I'm one of those radical people who believes there should be a ventilator on every ALS unit. I think that bag masking is so 70s that you know, if we had a surplus, just like we have a surplus of defibrillators and stretchers and things like that, if we had a surplus in New York and other places of ventilators, we could have just moved them down the street and let the hospitals use them for a while. But to me, it's archaic when we have a machine. We have a machine for everything else, but we don't have a machine for ventilation. I mean, you know, when I was a young paramedic, you'd go into the OR and the doctor, the anesthesiologist would bag the patient, let you feel lung compliance, and then boom, on went a ventilator. And that was, what, 150 years ago that I was an early paramedic? I don't know. But I was talking to Jim Augustine today, and I said, yeah, when I first became a paramedic in 1977, the only place we had a pair of gloves was in the OB kit. We didn't have any gloves in our ambulances. We just didn't do that. And then when we had the AIDS evolution come around, then people started wearing goggles. And then suddenly goggles went out of fashion because, well, we don't need them anymore. Well, now we're back in for the next year or two. It's going to be face shields. You know, the EMTs of today are, you know, the older EMTs, you just can't believe that we're into this particular situation, right? How many times in your career did you wear a gown before 6 weeks ago?
Never.
Really?
The only time I wore a gown, I guess,
Bed bugs.
bed bugs.
I'm with you. All right, so for the volunteer services in rural America, for the services that have not seen patients die from this, what kind of advice do you want to give them when you walk into a home? Are you trying to have people come out and meet you at the street if they can walk?
Most of the hotels, which are running rancid with COVID-19, we'll ask them, can you come out? Can you make it out? If they can't, we're gowned up, we're ready to go in. You got to go and grab and bring them out. But if they're ambulatory, absolutely, we tell them to walk. Can you walk out, please? We'll put them on a bed because basically that hotel room is just full of it. And we try to distance ourselves as much as possible. I'm taking care of me and my partner. I don't want to come home with this. So.
And what about the family members? I mean, you're going in and potentially somebody's going to get a call back because if that one person had it, then maybe the family members are going to have it, but you can't triage them right at that moment.
You'll have a couple of family members. Most of them are young. Some of them won't get really that sick. It's the elderly most of the time. But the past couple of weeks after it started happening, it started affecting young kids and older kids. There's no age limit. I mean, usually around 40, 50, they get a little serious, but now there's really no age limit right now.
And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but this virus is a repetitive virus, and I don't want to call it repetitive. What I was saying with Jim Augustine is that what we're finding is that somebody comes home and it happened to a firefighter that I read about. He came home and then he ended up with a pulmonary embolism, and somebody else ends up with a cardiac. So it's affecting the myocardial tissue. It's affecting the bloodstream, so that people are throwing blood clots and PEs. Have you seen that?
Yeah, well, we had a couple of young kids, 5, 6, and 7, and they got over the disease, and 3-4 weeks later, now they're coming in for cardiac arrest, blood clots. It's insane. It's just like you think you get rid of the disease, now it stays with you. So it's just so many different strains right now going on in the AJ. It's mutating, and that's the scary part.
Well, anosmia is a new term that everybody's got to know. If you go in and you're assessing somebody and you're saying to them anything unusual, I'm just not feeling right. Do you have a sense of taste? Do you have a sense of smell? If they say they can't smell or taste or that haven't for the past couple of days, bingo, the light should be going on. There's so many different things that through GEMS and others, are going to be putting out that are just going to be tips. So I appreciate you guys being on. I honestly, you know, I've been pinging you because I worry about you. I worry about everybody out there in the field. We're all a brotherhood, and but I know you guys are fierce competitors and that you're safe. And if you need somebody to watch over you, I can bring Bubba back from retirement.
He says
go,
hello.
yeah.
He wants to come back. You know, with
You
a
know,
capable.
I was thinking about Bubba the other day because I was thinking about, you see that balloon that they have in Italy for ventilation? We could probably put Bubba inside that balloon.
Make him a bubble boy. He
Like
come out.
bubble boy. Yeah.
He
He
definitely
would
would
do
come out.
it.
Well, guys, thanks very much. Please be safe. And
Thanks.
and thanks for coming on the show. Have a great
Stay
night.
safe, okay?
All right, take care.
Bye now.
Take care.